Good morning, this is Elijah with DLM Lasers, and we're on site at Born-Again Woods in Garrison, Minnesota, where they use their lasers to create one-of-a-kind signs on reclaimed lumber. Tim is one of our clients. We frequently visit him to help maintain his lasers. He's been having some problems with one of them, and we think we've gotten it straightened out with the factory. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about maintaining your machine, especially at this time of year. Many of you who use your lasers to have income full-time will find when they're down, you're not making money. So I'm going to show you some really simple tricks to make sure that you can keep your laser maintained and going through the holiday season. What we've done with this machine before we started the video was we actually took an air hose and sprayed out the whole thing. You want to make sure that your laser is pretty dust-free to maintain the longevity of the belts and any of the moving parts. Back here, because they do so much wood, they actually had a lot of buildup on the top here where the fan sucks down just from all the soot and stuff from the wood. Tim likes to burn very deep, so he actually uses his tube at a very high power, which creates a lot of smoke. So we've taken all the debris out of here, we've blowed out all of these parts. If you have a Chinese machine, right, which most people do, and you have very little support, there might be some things that they didn't tell you or that you didn't know. We get calls frequently from customers trying to do troubleshooting for simple things like, why is my design not crisp, or I'm not getting as much power out of my tube as I used to. And so some of these things are going to help prevent that troubleshooting phone call. The first thing is cleaning the lens in your head. Every head from each machine is a little different, but basically you're going to have something that looks like this. This is actually going to unscrew here, which is going to allow you to pull this out. Now, if you have a moving Z table, you'll probably have to bring your table down some to get that out of there. Okay, so now you see we have the head here. This is our red dot. This is our autofocus for our moving Z. I have the air assist turned off, but our air assist is here. This is going to turn off of there. And again, depending on how your laser head is set up, you might have to modify this a little bit, but they're all going to be pretty much the same. If you look inside of here, this is the lens. This is our focus lens. We've got a ring around here. Some are silver, some are black, but what we're going to do is unscrew this ring. Sometimes it's a little more difficult, and I usually always break my fingernails. You don't want to put anything sharp in here because you can scratch your lens, or if you miss your little notch right there, you could break it. Nobody wants to be down for a broken lens, especially when they range in price from 30 to 100 bucks. So, as we spin this ring out here, you're going to just take the palm of your hand, tip it upside down because you don't want to drop this. Now, they ran this machine yesterday. You can see we've got a little bit of residue in there. If you're using an air assist that's connected to a large air compressor, you're going to sometimes find oil residue from the air compressor in there, and you want to try and get rid of that as much as you can. Now, the easiest thing to clean your lens with is going to be simple eyeglass cleaning cloths here. You want to use an alcohol-free product or denatured alcohol. Anything else is going to be pretty corrosive on your lens. Simple, just take it and clean it up. If you didn't know there was a lens in there, or if you haven't done this in a long time, you might find that you need just some hot soapy water to do this job, because you're going to have a lot of crap on there. Okay, now if you look at the lens, you can see one side's flat and one side has a bump. The bump side needs to go facing your material. So this is how I do it. That way I know the lens is in there in the correct way. Put this baby down. You want to make sure it's pretty tight. One of the easiest things to troubleshoot on a machine when your graphic is getting sloppy is your lens tight in there, because as that head moves back and forth, if there's some slop from your lens, you're going to find your graphic is kind of skewed, or you're not getting very crisp edges. Okay, put it back together. Now, this doesn't really matter. Some people freak out, how do I mark this? If you have an autofocus function or if you're using a guide, it's the distance between the tip and your material. This part is not as that big a deal. You want to make sure this gets up there nice and tight too. The problem that this machine will have sometimes is the air assist back here actually rubs on our gantry, creating a very high squeak sound, which after you listen to it for about 20 minutes, you want to shoot yourself. So I always make sure I've got a gap in there so that doesn't happen. Another thing that can be an issue if you have this kind of stop switch for your autofocus is if this screw gets turned here, your autofocus isn't going to work and then your Z is going to run into your laser head. So you want to make sure that that's over there so it's got that proper distance for the height. The next thing we're going to do is with the same cleaning cloth, we're going to clean our mirror here. Pretty simple. Get all the dust off of that one. And then we're going to come back here to the tube side. We're going to clean this one here. And the one very important process that we need to make sure we're doing is we want to make sure that we actually clean the lens that's in the tip of our laser tube. Many people forget about this and it reduces the life of the lens that's in there. This is such a simple task to do to help increase the life of your tube. Well, this is what I do. I take a Q-tip, put my little cloth over the end of that, stick it in there, gently clean that end. You're gonna find that if you are battling with a laser warranty that they're gonna ask for a picture of the end of this tube. They wanna see how bad the lens is. If the lens looks like it's full of oil or debris, it's way less likely that you're going to be able to get that warranty through your tube manufacturer. We always try and clean the tubes, make sure that they're clean. And it's important to remember to check water level in your chiller. I cannot stress this enough. Make sure it's a habit every day when you plug your machine in, make sure your chiller is plugged in, and check your water level. Is it going to move that much? No, of course not. But the day that it is low, you're going to catch it. You don't want to lose a tube due to that. And if you live in Minnesota, like we do, or any cold state, even if your machine is in a warm place, antifreeze really is the best guarantee that you're not going to lose your tube due to your furnace going out or a cold snap. It really doesn't take anything. Stop at the gas station, grab some antifreeze, throw it in there. We actually had to replace a tube for a customer who had their machine in the garage, and they keep it at about 40 degrees, but because the temperature in there creates ice crystals in the tube, and the tube is very fragile, they ended up breaking a tube. So I always want to recommend that. Now this is the maintenance that I just showed you is something that you should do every day. Something that you want to do once a week, depending on how much you use your machine. We always suggest just simple oil. You're going to oil your rails along here. You want to put some oil on your belt so you keep them supple. And it doesn't have to be a lot, just right inside there. And then you're just going to move your head back and forth to get that worked in. Pretty simple. You also want to make sure that you're doing these axes here because they're all important moving parts of your laser. I always stress that, especially when you're using your laser at high times like Christmas time when you're making a lot of things, because you're using it so much, that machine goes back and forth really fast. Just take 10 minutes at the beginning of your day or at the end of your day, whatever makes more sense to you, and you want to check there's screws here that hold these belts on. Just do a little simple test. How tight are these? If these are jumping around, they're going to cause your image to be messed up. Check any connection that could be loose. Right here, right here. There's always something in here that's moving that needs to be checked. When I get a call from someone who says, my graphic isn't coming out the way it's supposed to, it looks like it's wiggling, the first thing I always say, check your lens, check your mirrors, because that's usually the case. The next thing I say is check your belts. Sometimes you're going to have somebody else help you check them, because it could be as simple as skipping a cog once in a while. But it's going to save you that troubleshooting phone call if you know what to check first. I think that's about it for your regular troubleshooting maintenance schedule. If you have any other questions about what you've seen here, or if you're having issues with your laser, or to download a maintenance schedule, you can visit our services tab on our website, www.dlmlasers.com, or you can email me at sales@dlmlasers. Have a great day.